Concerning narrative conventions, I have used conventional plot lines that relate to the social realism genre, including absence of parents, which is featured in London to Brighton, drug abuse, which is covered in Kidulthood, and threat of social authorities, which is featured in I, Daniel Blake. My trailer features the idea of a loan shark, which is not a typical plotline featured within the social realism genre. This may spark more interest from my target demographic, as they may have not watched a film that has covered this topic. I have also used the idea of using Todorov's narrative stages, with my trailer being dominated by the disequilibrium stage. However, I have not used the 4 narrative stages in order by jumping backwards and forwards between the disequilibrium and the attempt to repair stages. This is conventional to film trailers such as London to Brighton. My trailer uses the convention of binary opposites theorised by Strauss, such as old versus young, rich versus poor, and authorities versus victim, which are all used in social realism films such as London to Brighton and Kidulthood. These opposites create conflict within the narrative, which is what I desired, as it creates excitement for the audience. The film poster uses the convention of the image being in the disequilibrium stage, which is clear through the neutral facial expressions on both characters' faces. This is also featured in other social realism film posters such as Fish Tank and The Governors. The narrative isn't clear on the front cover of my film magazine, as I have used the Sight and Sound magazine convention of portraying the actor instead of the character. The magazine would have taken the image rather than the film company, therefore it would be out of context for the plot line. I have done this to appeal to a more mature section of my target demographic. The duration of my trailer is 2 minutes, which is a typical convention used by social realism films for trailers such as I, Daniel Blake and Fish Tank. The captions in my trailer are all from reviews of the film rather than explaining the narrative. This is a convention commonly used within social realism films, such as I, Daniel Blake and the London to Brighton trailers. I did this to promote my film more through reviews, which may influence more of my viewers to watch the film after watching the trailer. I have used typical genre semantic conventions within my trailer, such as rundown streets, parks and flat buildings as locations, tracksuits and trainers as costume, props such as drugs and money, and the use of ambient and low lighting, creating a natural yet gritty tone and atmosphere. These genre elements are commonly used within the social realism genre, as it helps the audience to identify the genre of film quickly and easily. I have challenged the convention of using old and cheap phones within my trailer, instead using iPhones. This is so that I can display the wealth of the loan shark and the recklessness of the protagonist with his spending habits when he obtains the loan, as well as being relatable to the audience, as typically most of my audience would have smartphones. Regarding mise-en-scène of the poster, I have used a typical convention of using the location of a rundown brick wall behind my characters, which is used in the Looking for Eric and Fish Tank film posters. This is to display to the audience that it is a social realism film and will be featured in rundown and gritty locations. The institutions I have used include Vertigo Films and BBC Films. I did this because Vertigo Films contributed towards London to Brighton and The Firm, whilst BBC Films have contributed towards Fish Tank and typically are part of British film production. I have used the convention of including the UK Film Council within my institutions, as they typically help fund British films such as Attack the Block, Submarine and Tyrannosaur. Using these institutions mean that my film has a higher production value than most social realism films, therefore developing the convention of using a British mainstream institution. I have developed the convention of using social media links, as I have included Facebook and Twitter links, however not a website address. This is because social media viral marketing is free, as well as being arguable that more of my audience will view the social media links rather than visiting the film website. The institution I used for the magazine was BFI, as it also produces Sight and Sound magazine. I have used this convention as they know the genre well due to the films and actors that they feature in the cover lines and are featured within my trailer, therefore creating a correlation between the two. I've represented age conventionally by using the stereotypes of children being vulnerable and innocent through the character of Jake, through his lack of dialogue and the crying scene in the trailer, which I've done to arouse sympathy from my audience, which could then make them dislike the antagonist even more. I have also done this through the poster image, as he is significantly smaller than the protagonist. I represented Kyle and Liv as stereotypical teenagers and young adults, as Kyle is reckless with his money, and both of them being argumentative, which is also identified in Fish Tank through the character of Mia. However, I have developed this stereotype as Kyle is represented as the responsible adult as well as being protective within the narrative. I've conformed to the stereotype of middle-aged adults patronising and looking down on teenagers, which is shown through Jason taking advantage of Kyle and the social worker. I have represented gender conventionally, as the only female is represented as the victim due to the kidnapping and being verbally threatened by the loan shark. However, males are also represented as victims. Therefore, I have developed the convention as Kyle is the main victim of the antagonist, along with his younger brother. I have conformed to the stereotypical negative representation of males, representing Jason as brave, dominant and threatening, so that my audience clearly identifies that he's the antagonist and take a passive reading of disliking him. This representation can also be seen in London to Brighton through the characters of Stuart and Derek. Including 2 different representations of gender within the narrative has helped me to create conflict between characters, as Jason is represented as the dominant antagonist, whereas Kyle is represented as the controlled and helpless protagonist. I have used the convention of representing different social classes, which is common within social realism films. For example, in Fish Tank through Mia's family and her mother's new partner. I have represented the lower class through Jake and Kyle, using the stereotype of helpless and jobless, which could make an audience feel sympathy towards them. I have challenged the stereotype of the middle class through the character of Jason, as even though he is portrayed as wealthy, his costume consists of tracksuits, jeans and trainers. I have also represented the lower class by using the typical social realism convention of locating my trailer in parks, council estates, streets and flat blocks. I have done this to display the little money that my characters have and to clearly display to the audience what their social class is. However, in my film magazine, I have represented the actor who plays Jason as professional and smart, due to the mise-en-scène of his costume being a suit and a shaven facial appearance. I have done this so that it separates the character from the actor for the audience. I have challenged the convention of representing black people within my trailer by using only Caucasian characters, as conventionally in social realism films, black people are represented quite frequently, such as in Kidulthood and Bullet Boy, which connotes the negative stereotype of black people being criminals. I've done this to show that white people can be represented through the same stereotypes that black people are, such as violence and aggressiveness. I have represented Caucasians this way through the character of Jason, as he threatens a number of characters and physically attacks Kyle and Liv. Regarding cinematography, I have used the convention of the handheld camera technique throughout my trailer, which is conventionally used across the social realism genre. Other typical conventions that I have used include a tracking shot of the character running away, over-the-shoulder shots, and close-up shots to display the protagonist's emotions during the disequilibrium stage. I have challenged the convention of using an establishing shot due to the majority of my trailer not being featured in a city centre location. I have used a medium 2 shot in the film poster. This is so that the audience can identify the height difference between the characters and allows space to place institutional elements. I have used the convention of a medium close-up shot for the magazine image, which is the conventional shot type for magazine front covers. This is so that the audience can clearly see the person's facial expression, but enough dead space to place cover lines. I have used the font Go Bold across my trailer and poster, which is a sans serif typography. I have developed this convention, as typically sans serif fonts are used for social realism films, however they are also typically distorted. I have developed the convention of using black and white colours, as I used white but I used dark blue instead of black. I have done this to connote the sullen and sad mood that surrounds the narrative. The title of my trailer is Closing In, which suggests that a character is running out of time, feeling suffocated and is being chased by another character, in this case the antagonist and the social services. I have used the convention of creating a tagline for my film, which is "Don't take what you can't give back," which is revealed at the end of my trailer so that my audience can identify the moral message that surrounds the film and may stick in their head as it is the final thought that they are left with. I have used the convention of using film terminology as the title for my film magazine, which is Scope, which relates to other magazines such as Sight and Sound. This is so that it is evident to film fans that my magazine is in the film genre. The main cover line develops the conventions of a film magazine, as the actor's name is mentioned. However, the film title is not. I have done this so that fans of the actor will recognise him and buy the magazine, therefore attracting more viewership. I have used the convention of a rhetorical question which could spark a discussion that surrounds the answer. I have used the convention of cover lines being film titles and actors' names to retain the professional house style that focuses on actors rather than characters. I've used the convention of using both continuity editing through the exposition of my trailer so that the narrative is linear and is clear for the audience to follow, and discontinuity editing at the end of the trailer through the montage to allow my audience to view the most exciting scenes in the film. I've used the convention of using a shot reverse shot when the characters of Kyle and Liv are having an argument to show that they are having an interaction. I have also used the convention of using a smash cut within my trailer when the punch is thrown from the loan shark. This is so that the audience are unable to see the result of the punch, creating enigma. I have used the convention of increasing the pace as the trailer develops to build tension up until the climactic ending of my trailer. This is so that it keeps my audience gripped from beginning to end and makes them excited and interested to see what happens in the film. I have developed the convention of using a slower paced, non-diegetic soundtrack at the beginning of my trailer and a fast-paced soundtrack during the montage at the end of my trailer, by including a third soundtrack in between.
I was wondering if you could help me out.
How much you want? I'll give you $5,000.
I have done this to gradually increase the pace of my trailer, to create more dramatic tension and to establish the conflict between the protagonist and the antagonist. I have used non-diegetic stings within my trailer during the caption and the point of view shot when Jason is kicking Kyle, which is a typical convention used in film trailers. I have done this to make the shots seem more violent and exciting for the audience, which could make them feel more hooked onto the story. I also used non-diegetic contrapuntal sound near to the end of my montage and finishes when the shot cuts to black. I did this to build the pace and tension up until the climactic point of my trailer, which could help the audience feel intrigued and enticed into watching. I've used the convention of using dialogue within my trailer, which is typically used in almost all film trailers. This is so that the audience can identify the narrative through speech rather than text, and to understand the narrative role that characters possess.